Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fireside Glide. It's a new series that we've started. We did the first one last week, had a really great one. Enjoyed seeing you all there. And we're coming up to Christmas, so this will be the last one, but we're hoping to make this into a regular thing and feature some other members of the Glide team in the new year. So I'm here with David, Glide CEO, and we're here to answer any questions. So if you haven't already, please post comments and questions in the chat, and we'll get to them. But David, I believe that you wanted to go through something before that to get people's brains going.
Yeah, we have a really cool demo of a technology that we've just previewed with some of our inside users on our community forum. If you're very active in our community forum, you can gain a certain trust level, and then you get access to the inner sanctum where we post ideas and preview features early to get feedback. And I'll just wait a couple more minutes. I assume some people are trickling in from the community. But yeah, I just got the demo working like 7 minutes ago. And Mark made me promise not to promise that this is coming anytime soon because it needs a lot of finesse because it's a very high-powered feature. But it's very exciting, so I'm happy to demo it.
Yeah. In my view that I have at the moment, I can't actually see who is here yet. So do drop a note in the chat, guys, and say hello and let us know who you are, where you're calling in from. And yeah, any questions that you have, we're happy to answer them. And this is going to be a regular thing. We're going to put something up on the Glide support hub about this. It's going to be a regular weekly thing, maybe bi-weekly, we're not sure yet. And it's designed primarily for kind of new Glide users, but also we've got some old hands coming along as well for the questions. So if you know anyone who is new to Glide or you think would obviously benefit from using Glide, you can share this with them and they can just come along, no pressure, and learn about how it all works. Ricardo, hello. Hey, hi from Texas.
Jack, can we just tweet a link to this?
I did, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I replied to the thread that you posted yesterday.
Well, I guess I'll start the demo. The first part of it will just be sort of covering the ground that anyone familiar with Glide already knows well, and then I will show I'll show our fancy new thing. So let's see here. Okay, share my screen. Okay, respiratory tutor, Glide novice, welcome. Hey. Okay, let's see if this works. So when you make an app for the first time, you pick a sheet in your Google Drive, or you can start with a template. So I'm gonna pick this simple CRM template. I'm going to copy it. Oh, it's by Jack. Good job, Jack. I'm going to make a copy. And this is a pre-built app with some sample data. And we have this nice new feature. When you try one of our samples, we immediately publish it private to you. And you can scan this QR code to get it on your phone right away. Let's let this app load. It's going to take a little bit more time because this is our development server where some of these new features that I'm going to be showing are in preview. So here you can see this is an app for tracking some contact information. And if we take a look at the sheet, actually, I'll just view the sheet in Glide's data editor. You can see we have names, emails, titles, photos, and some notes about these people. And we can view anyone in here. These are stock photos with placeholder information. And we can edit their information and we can add new people. So let me do Jack, education, Glide, jack@heyglide.com. And let me find a picture. I'll just skip the picture. I don't have it. I'm entering some contact information, and here I've added Jack, and I don't have a picture for him. So that's just a very basic example of a Glide app. We copied from a template. It has some data associated with it, and you can add data. But what if you didn't have to add all of that data? What if the internet could help you? What if services that enrich email addresses with contact information, the most notable one, the one I'm most familiar with is Clearbit. Clearbit's a service where you can give them an email address and they'll give you the contact information they have for that email address that they found by scraping LinkedIn and company websites. So I'm going to go to another instance of this app that's empty, and I'm going to add a contact. I'm going to add. I'll add Jack again. And I'm just going to add his email address, and it knows his name and his company already. Didn't get a picture, but somehow it figured out his name and where he works. Let's do, I'll do it myself. It knows my picture and my bio from Twitter and my title, my company. Pretty impressive. And let's do let's see if it's got Jason. Oh, I got to type correctly. It does not have spelling correction. Case manager at Glide. Not really sure about the title, but got his picture. And let's try this. Let's try the anonymous creator of Bitcoin. Did we get anything for him? No. Oh, there we go. Employee at no.
Employee no. Right.
And let's try. Okay, so what's happening here? Let's do one more. Let's do Tim Cook. Look at that. How is this happening? We're just putting an email address in. So let's go look at the spreadsheet. Well, that doesn't help. The spreadsheet just has emails in it. Let's look in Glide's data editor. Here we see a lot more information. Let's add one of our friends, Dylan from Figma. Now, you can see I just put an email address in and all these other columns filled out. Another friend of Glide, Nat, CEO of GitHub. Look at that. Got his name, his title, no bio or photo. Let's see. Again, so it filled out the rest of these columns. And you can see we're just putting email addresses in and we're getting quite a lot of information. So what this is it's a new column type called API. And what this column does is when the values that it's using change, in this case the email, whenever the email changes, it's going to make a call to a server that we've set up. And the server has some JavaScript running on it that knows how to use this Clearbit API to request contact information. So you may be familiar with formulas like this in Google Sheets. In Google Sheets, there's a translate formula and a Google Finance formula. And those formulas take an input of like a stock ticker, and it goes and gets a price from a service. So this is Glide's first foray into enriching your table with a column that is sort of, it can talk to other services over the internet. So this is a preview. And if you're a Glide insider, you can test it on our staging server. And I just want to reiterate what Mark said. This is not available anytime soon. This is going to take a lot of making sure it's secure and making sure the performance is great. Because when you run this on your phone will just dial into these servers for each one of these rows to get all the data. So we're very excited to sort of open up Glide in this way and make it talk to the internet and sort of get more data than you're manually entering into your app or even that exists in your spreadsheet. This is not a focus for us yet. This is a place that we think is an obvious place to take Glide, to just make it naturally connected to the internet. But it was just a fun experiment, and it's kind of cool to show off. So I wanted to demo it.
Yeah, I'm super excited about the sort of direction of Glide with this, just as the inception of it, because yeah, there's so many potentials for it. So yeah, if you have any questions, guys, not just about this feature or about anything else, please drop them in the chat. We're happy to answer them. but maybe people don't have questions today, in which case that's okay. We can just end this fireside a little early.
Yeah. Jack's on holiday right now, and I kind of forgot to promote this webinar. So my bad. Maybe I didn't get as many people as we should.
I think people tend to wind up at this time of year anyway as well. It's not,
Yeah. And also we'll post this on YouTube where people can watch it at their leisure.
Yeah, sure.
Ricardo is very impressed. Thank you, Ricardo. Yeah, well, if we don't have questions, we can wrap up early and wish everyone happy holidays, happy New Year. Jack, what are you excited about next year for Glide?
Let me just bring up. Well, we haven't actually decided. So every sort of, it was every 6 months, and now we might be changing it to a little bit shorter, every 3 months or quarter. We have a kind of a planning session, and we usually get together. And unfortunately, for the last 8 months, we haven't been able to get together. But these are very exciting kind of meetups where the team gets together, has fun, because we're primarily a remote team. But we also plan the next cycle as well. Yeah, we put in some ideas, and looks like I've got the old one here. So on my laptop. So yeah, we haven't actually decided yet, but this area of the data editor for sure for me is really exciting, because I think when I see, we talk to customers a lot, and one of the primary things I see people doing at the moment with Glide is bringing in data from multiple sources and presenting it in a useful way for their team, for their clients. It could be a portal for customers, and we're all in stage now where we're using so many different tools, and data is in lots of different places, and we can make this more part of the story of Glide. That's very exciting. So we do have a question. Santiago, let me just get to this first. I was trying to play with glitch, but could not get it right.
So on our community forum where we are talking about this API feature, there's a service called Glitch where you can write some JavaScript in your browser, and they'll launch an API endpoint for you, which is what you need to put into the column to call. And this is not for novices. This is it requires knowledge of programming. And ideally, if you're building an app on Glide, there would be, the people who provide the API, for example, the stock price lookup, they might provide an endpoint that you could use that's compatible with Glide and instructions for how to use it. So I'm very excited. I hope soon after we launch this, we see someone create a service that is just to help you get your APIs into Glide, where it'll do like the translation layer and metering, etc. It requires kind of a precise interface that includes extra information about what kinds of values are going back and forth. So in this case, when the email is sent to the server, it tells the server, this is some text, and then the server has to send back, the name of the person that says, oh, this is also text, and there's a specific protocol there. So that's not intended to be something that most people building Glide apps are going to do. It's more for us to learn and experiment. And, maybe if you're building a Glide app within your company, an engineering team might expose some API to Glide to help you connect to your customer database or, your inventory database or something like that.
With these kind of columns and sort of extensions, whatever you want to call them, for the data editor, far in Glide's future, do you see that being obviously primarily accessible to most people, but do you see it also opening up to very experienced developers as well? Do you see us building tools for that?
Yeah, I think that, what I would like to do is when we have eventually, a long time from now, just to appease Mark, long time from now, when this becomes available, we'll see how people use it. Well, they'll tell us. We're not going to look at your apps, but and if we see a lot of people are using this for financial APIs, what we can do is we can make a finance column that includes with it the API, and then everyone can access it without having to set up a server or write some code. This is just a very low level primitive. In the case of Clearbit, this is one we wanted to offer for a long time. It's just a Clearbit column where you choose a source email address, and then that column will basically create a cloud relation. So in Glide, you can relate tables between each other, the clear bit column, for example, if it finds the information about that person, it would look like a relation has been created, and you'd be able to do lookups and use that data in your app.
Yeah.
So most people will interact with these very high level, we call them smart columns, that take a little bit of input and then they can get more information from the internet.
So recipe tutors talking about where should he start? Where should they start? Sorry, I need. What is this primarily an educational question? I think maybe. I'd love to know a little bit more about what you're struggling with, but the general place we suggest people start with is with a template, because you can start. You don't start from scratch, but I appreciate that sometimes when you open up a template, you don't know a lot of what's going on in there. So yeah, I'd love to know, have you taken some of the tutorials that we've done, or have you contacted a Glide expert or been on the forum? Let us know what you've struggled with. Kevin says, sorry, David, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, we have a playlist on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/glideapps. Tons of videos there. And one of our playlists, I think, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, it's called Basics or Glide 101 or something.
Yeah.
There's 4 or 5 very straightforward videos that just introduce Glide slowly. Yeah. Oh, you bought a couple of templates. Yeah, it's useful to couple the templates with these tutorials so you can sort of get oriented. Because sometimes if you buy a template that's already built by someone who's very experienced in Glide, it can be constructed in a way that's it's hard to pick up on because they've done some advanced stuff. So I think it's always great to do some of the courses and read some of the tutorials.
Yeah, so Kevin's brought up a good point here about relations and lookups. So those are tutorials I did at least a year ago, and they're some of the short form tutorials, which are sort of like 3-minute bite-sized things. I could definitely extend those out, and they are absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Kevin. They're like fundamental. So we could actually include a video about those in the basic series. You've got like the fundamentals, and then we include relations as well, because everyone needs to do that. Or maybe it would just be a data editor introduction, something like that. No, but this is really useful, actually.
One thing I'm excited to try someday is suggested relations, where we look at your data. And because a relation works by taking a column in one table and matching it to a column with the same values in another table. So, for example, someone on this webinar said they were making that for students. So you might have like a syllabus, and the syllabus could list titles of books. Yeah. You could relate those titles to a larger list of materials by matching the title in the syllabus to the title in like the book index, and then they would be related. We can do some analysis that would automatically detect these similarities and say, hey, it looks like these 2 columns in these 2 tables could be related. Do you want to explore that further? So that could be something that could help people create relations before they totally understand them.
So yeah, the same person is saying, oh, that sneezed. Sorry if I sneezed. Is saying that he's struggling with relations because you're primarily using Google Sheets. So I've dropped a link to our documentation, which has a bunch of videos on relations as well in the chat there. But essentially, there are many things that a spreadsheet can do with Glide and in terms of presenting data, but then you get to a certain point where you need to do some other things, like linking data together. And a relation is one of the most fundamental columns that you do that you use in the data editor to kind of link them together, like David was saying, employees to locations, or students to their classrooms, or teachers to their students. So yeah, have a look at that. That should hopefully help you. It looks like we've given you another idea.
Relations are the first thing that we added on top of Google Sheets that doesn't exist in Google Sheets. But the concept is very popular. You'll find it in tools like Airtable, Notion. I think there's this new product called Google Tables. I'm sure they have this concept. It's just, creating a relation between different rows. It's very common in databases, but not in spreadsheets. So that's why it could seem tricky, is because there's no real natural place for it in your Google Sheet And even when you have to make the relations in Glide's data editor, which is like our version of a spreadsheet interface. And even after you make a relation there, when you go back to your Google Sheet, you won't see anything there about the relation. It all lives in Glide. So that can be a little tricky. Just like in the example I showed with this, the data we were getting from an API was not in the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet just had email addresses. Relations are kind of like that, and that can be tricky.
Sandy Hill has a question about saving layouts and forms and screens and actions.
Yeah. Actions, yes. So right now, for those of you who don't quite understand what this question is about, in Glide, you can create different layouts for your screens, new screens that you access via actions, clicking on buttons. And we have this new actions feature where inside of a button, you can define a sequence of actions with conditions that cause conditional behavior. And when you define these, when you build these things, they live in, the action lives inside the button, just that individual button. You can't reuse it. And to go edit it, you have to find that screen, open that button, and open its action. So for actions, we are planning, I think before mid-January, to have a section in the builder where you can go see all of the actions used in your app, and you can edit them directly and save them and reuse them. So that's our priority. But yeah, I think this is an area we'd like to learn more about, is how people conceptualize these parts of their app, because there's not an explicit place for them. Glide doesn't even show you all of the screens in your app at once. You just see one at a time. So they're never sort of simultaneously collected anywhere. But if this could help people understand and navigate and work on their app, or in the case of when you get a template, if you could sort of lay it out and see at a higher level what's in it, that could help you understand it, rather than you have to kind of like experience the app as a user to explore it. That would be an interesting area for us to at least do some brainstorming.
Mm-hmm. So we have another question here about making a flashcard deck. There are a couple of ways you could do it. The one that comes to mind, there are many ways you can approach things in Glide. The simplest way that I can think of off the top of my head is having a list of items, and you just apply the checklist layout, and then you check the ones that you want to be in your kind of learning list. And then you have another list which you filter based on whether the checkbox is checked. But that's a very crude version of it. I'd have to think. David, does anything come onto the top of your head about how to replicate a flashcard list or flashcard app?
Yeah, I would just do a detail screen and shuffle.
Right, okay.
And then a button that says, next, and it could
just the learning page. Yeah, okay, that's true.
There's a in Glide, there's basically two types of screens. There's a list of things, and then what we call a detail screen, which is where you just view one row in your spreadsheet at a time, but visualizing it as components stacked up. So in my contacts app, we have these tiles where we saw multiple contacts. That's a list. And then when we tapped on one, we saw just the information for that one person. That's a detail screen. So to make a flashcard app, you would just make one screen in your app that's a detail screen that sits on top of all, maybe you're trying to learn vocabulary words. So a detail screen that sits on top, it's backed in your spreadsheet by a list of all of these words. And then you can shuffle the row that's displayed in that detail screen. And every time you shuffle, it will just randomly select a different row, and it will show it as just that one row as a vocab word. So that's pretty. You can figure it out relatively quickly. It's kind of hard to explain, but it is easy to do.
There's a couple of so there's another you've added about your question about the daily quiz as well. There are definitely a few apps on the template store, the Glide template store. Robert Petito's made one for sure. Owen has made one. Maybe you could have a look at those templates and see whether they're right for you. And you've also said about you need a Glide tutor. So the Glide experts are not just people that you would employ to build your app for you. They do consulting on kind of teaching people. A number of people, I know Jesus and Tom work also for Apps Without Code, which is a huge educational kind of no-code group company. So yeah, you can reach out to them and see whether they're interested.
Yeah, the best thing to do is watch the videos. Those help a lot. We have a huge amount of documentation you can read, and you can join our community forum, where if you get stuck, you can post screenshots of what you're trying to do and explain it, and people will help you instantly. Like, we have a very active forum. So if you ever feel overwhelmed, there are a lot of resources, and I really recommend you just engage with them. And maybe you have too many resources and people kind of don't know where to start. But I really recommend you watch the YouTube videos and join our forum.
Yeah, Kevin's just said, I've just put this up here. Anyone who's a teacher who's new to Glide should get in touch, or at least follow Robert Petito as well, who's one of the experts, who is a teacher. I have no idea how he's a teacher and a parent and also manages to do all of the forum posts and templates. He's a busy guy. So yeah. Cool. So we're just about done for time. Does anyone have any other questions? You can pop them in the chat now. But yeah, otherwise we will probably see you we will definitely see you in the new year.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, guys. Take care.